And welcome everybody, Scarlet and Great podcast. This is the YouTube version. I don't know why I sound like Johnny Carson's host or what do you call him, introduction guy. Don't even know what it's called. Don't listen. I don't know why I went all voice first on y'all there, but anyway, this is Corey, Florida Corey from Scarlet and Great. Here with me, a good friend of the show, Dylan Freeman. You can see his Twitter handle there at Dylan Freeman VP if you want to bug him on Twitter. Dylan, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. Just got home from work a little bit ago. How you doing, Corey?
Didn't get home from work, but I had a busy day, so tired as well. We're both here, so we're both hanging here. But you know what? We wanted to come on and talk about all the basketball losses that are piling up. No, kidding.
So that's why you are tired. You had to watch that game.
Oh, geez, that wore me out watching Luka Garza elbow people in the face and shove people around. No, it's tiring watching how bad they are at the moment. I mean, it's ebbs and flows of basketball, except unless you're the team up north, apparently. But or Gonzaga, you don't have to play anybody. But that being said, we do have some good news in spite of today's loss, right? For the football program, because obviously NCAA has been completely screwing us with the COVID rules constantly. It's been killing us in recruiting a little bit. There's probably over the last year or so you can count at least on one hand a number of big time recruits we've lost because of COVID. Now it's showing that it's not affecting Brian Hartline though, as he can pretty much pick and choose whomever he wants in the country. I have never witnessed a recruiter quite like Hartline at Ohio, even at Ohio State. It's been pretty insane what he's been able to do. And in case you don't know, 94 rated and a 4-star from Arizona, Kyion Grayes has committed to Ohio State. Chandler, Arizona, class of 2022, 6'1", 170 pounds. Dylan, you've known about this for a little while, though, haven't you? I mean, you weren't first. Just kidding.
Yeah, not everyone can be first.
But you've known about this for a while. Are you happy with this pickup?
I am. I think he's a really solid player. I mean, I don't necessarily see him as a day one contributor, but I think he's gonna be a player here. He has everything you want, and if you watch all his interviews and stuff like that, he has a very mature mindset. It's a business decision. He knows Ohio State can develop him, and he knows that if he puts in the work, he'll get rewarded.
So, do you think Brian Hartline targeted this guy early on? Is just like because Brian, he's the number 14th rated receiver in the country according to 247. Obviously he's a good player. He's a top 150 player. That's indisputable. But with Brian Hartline, he kind of just like, I want the top 5 receivers, and that's who I'm getting. Because that's just how he seems to recruit. If Hartline identifies you and gets you early, there's got to be something special about you. What do you think Hartline saw in this guy?
He saw pretty much the same thing he saw. I mean, obviously before Olave, but Olave, he sees the separation. There's nothing necessarily that's oh my gosh and like flashy necessarily, but he creates separation. Like if you saw like PFF had the thing about it was like 8 yards of separation or something like the high percentage of separation for every single catch. It's just that he has great route running. He knows the game, and he's just so smooth in and out of his breaks.
Yeah, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. I hope you all I do apologize for that. But you get what Dylan's saying here. Yeah, that's the thing is there's nothing. Same thing with Olave. There's nothing that like just stands out like holy smokes, nobody else can do that. But he is usually wide open with his breaks and especially the comeback routes and things like that. It just seems like nobody can cover him on those sideline routes, especially. And he can get you deep too, as we saw against Clemson. I mean, it just is what it is. So you think Grayes is kind of a jack of all trades. He can get you deep sometimes. He can get you on the underneath routes as well. He's just a Mr. Steady Eddie like a Chris Olave.
Yes, he can do it all. He can play the X, the Z. He can play in the slot. Kind of like Olave. They can do it all. He can put him anywhere you want on the field, any of the 3 receiver spots, and he's a mismatch wherever he is. And kind of like you were mentioning, and I said earlier that he doesn't necessarily stand out in one particular category, like that's dominant, but he's just so smooth and fluid, and it's very uncommon coming out of high school to be that technically sound and just that smooth and fluid throughout the whole game. And if you watch him, his huddle, especially the last, the very towards the end of the huddle and towards the 7-on-7s, he's just gliding right by the guys. It's kind of like Olave. He doesn't look that fast, but he's plenty fast, and he just gets open.
Buckeye Nation loves hearing that when you compare him to Chris Olave, all of his strengths. I think we could take another Chris Olave every single year. I mean, I don't think anybody complain about that. We- I got to say, I didn't know much about him until you talked about him a few weeks ago. And I I trust Heartline so explicitly now that I was like, I don't even need to watch film of him. I already know he's got to be good if Heartline wants him. You're pretty excited about him. Obviously, you're a scout yourself. You can see what you see on the film. Me, I could look at Huddle all day and go, every receiver looks good. I don't know, but so what do you? Let me ask you something. Does this correlate to a guy like Kyion Grayes? Is he a kind of guy that makes a guy like Quinn Ewers, who's in the same class, who's the quarterback of the class, even more excited to come to Ohio State, knowing that this is going to be who his crew is going forward?
Yes, he's a sure-handed guy, and he's not necessarily the most explosive, but he's plenty explosive, and he
Mm-hmm.
knows that he's going to be able to rely on this guy. Some of the big names, Burton's the exception, but like a lot of the big name guys, they're just great athletes. Kind of like Fleming coming out of high school,
Mm-hmm.
great athlete, just bigger, faster, and stronger than everyone else. You saw he had a few drops, which I mean that's easily to improve on, but it's hard to trust someone early on when they do that. Um, but Grayes is going to be there, and you know where he's going to be at the top of his route every single time. And so that's quarterback's best friend, kind of like KJ Hill in that aspect that he's JT and then Haskins knew where he was going to be and trusted him to be there. And he knew that he was going to get separation, enough separation when he really counted on him.
So, what does it take for a receiver to be successful in a Ryan Day offense program? Because he's obviously running a more pro style passing attack than what we've seen. And do you think the Grayes is on top of what we've got, like Caleb Burton coming in from last year's class as well, like the Flemings, the Nick Jigbas, and the Scotts of the world? Does it represent a bit of a change in our philosophy for wide receiver recruiting? Do you think overall?
I think a little bit. I think you can see a lot of the guys are interchangeable in our offense. You can line them up at X. There's no really class like they're not designed for one area necessarily. I mean, obviously a guy like Harrison and G Scott are more of the X receiver, the big, tall, physical
Mm,
guy. But at the same time, we play kind of like Wilson. We moved him all around this year. He did play a lot in the slot, but he played out the X, he played out the Z. They moved Olave into the slot sometimes. So it's more of just finding matchups as opposed to having a designated label on what receiver spot you are. And so I think with that, you can kind of create more mismatches and kind of scheme your guys open more than just running a play for. I mean, more as opposed to just running a play for the X. You can do it. You can put the guy at the Z instead on that route if it opens more in field for you guys.
okay. What do you think are some of the things that Grayes needs to kind of work on and cover a little bit more in depth? Like, because you said he's not going to be a day one contributor, so he's obviously got things to work on. Because if he's not the freakish athlete that they can make up for some of the shortcomings. So he's going to have to polish his game up a bit more. What do you think he needs to work on before he becomes pretty much an every down contributor?
He's just a little slender right now. He needs to put on some weight.
Do we have a good strength coach for that, or?
I think he's in Jacksonville right now, actually.
Oh, he went to Jacksonville. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but everyone, I think he really needs to just get bigger and stronger. I know you look at Olave; he's not the biggest and strongest still, but if you look at him from the day he arrived,
Mm.
he's a completely different player, just physique wise. And I mean, he's still thin, but he's strong. And I mean, even you see him and he goes across the middle. Sometimes if he gets a big hit, he notices it, and that's just
Mm.
kind of one of the things that coming from high school, you don't. I mean, obviously you play some good teams and you're gonna know the middle linebacker occasionally, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But you don't really have that opportunity in high school as you do going up against some of the middle linebackers that like Micah Parsons or what I mean. Like it's just different running those slants and curl routes across the middle that I mean he's gonna be running a lot of, especially early on.
Yeah, I noticed that Olave doesn't really have the frame to get too big. I was actually shocked to learn that Terry McLaurin was a lot bigger than Olave, like 20 pounds bigger. That
Oh
kind of
yeah.
shocked me a little bit because Terry is not big in stature, so you would think he was around 190. Turns out he's around 210, and Olave's stuck in that 185, 190 range, and it's probably maybe 5 more pounds, but he's not going to get much bigger.
No.
Um, so usually in Grayes, he's like 170s. He's listed right now. He's gonna have to put on 20 pounds, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean that's not unheard of, especially with
Of
Marati.
course not.
But it is going to be a challenge. I mean, to be able to, obviously you can play that small. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
to be on a consistent basis, day in and day out, especially with our schedule. I mean, as far as number of Big Ten opponents and playing in the Big Ten championship and stuff like that, it takes a toll on your body. So
Of course,
you
yeah.
need to get
We have a
stronger and
physical defense is all up and down the conference. Absolutely.
and really the only other thing that it's not really a weakness is just haven't really seen too much of in his highlights. Um, I haven't really seen him tracking the ball in the air.
Gotcha.
He's been open, you know, what I mean, quite a bit on his long routes. He's such good at creating separation that he doesn't necessarily have to show that in high school or 7-on-7s, you know.
So
But
you're
that's
saying that he maybe not even catch it. Maybe he's catching traffic. You never know how it could be
yeah,
strength
or
or
even
weakness.
even
Yeah.
the deep ball, just kind of going up
Mhm.
and get it over the defender, like kind of like Devin Smith, how you knew that if you threw it up to him, he was going to get it, like
Yeah. He
10
per-
yards away. You
he
know what I mean?
bailed out Cardale a little bit with that one.
Yeah, and so it's not that he's really a weakness. It's just we haven't really been able to see that much on his film to kind of
Mhm.
make a determination on that.
But we've seen enough to know that we're not worried about it. Is what you're saying.
No, I mean like I said, he does everything well.
That's what if we're in an offense like you're saying that you have to be able to interchange receivers, and Garrett Wilson's showing prime example of that. He could play anywhere along the line of scrimmage. Nick Jibba as well. You know, exact. Oh, thank you. Exactly. Uh, it makes sense then that he would be a guy that you're looking at on film, and with your own eyes, your scout eyes, you're saying this guy just does everything well. He's a jack of all trades. It looks like we want a receiver that doesn't is good at everything, not great at one thing.
Yeah, like so
Basically.
he can play the Z and take the top off the defense. He can run the short intermediate routes, the H slot, and so he can do it all as far as not really even worrying about having to put him out there and try running deep if you can't do it, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, same position, but kind of want to go to the current freshman. I know I'm putting this on you on the spot. It's just come to mind. Uh, we Ryan Day's talked about the freshmen that are standing out, and it's not Igbuka yet, who we all know is going to be a great player. I'm not, oh my gosh, it's a bust. It's nothing like that. But are you kind of surprised to hear that Harrison's kind of playing really well so far? Because I mean, a lot of people he became a little bit of an afterthought. I never understood why. He's the son of a Hall of Famer. Usually that turns out okay, at least okay. He's been taught by Hartline and Marvin Harrison Sr. He's always shown great or I mean, not always shown. I think his weakness was always sometimes his hands were a little weak at times, but his route running's always been good. He's got decent speed. Apparently, he's in the 4.5 now range, and he's got great size at 210 and 6'4". So, are you kind of surprised that he's really blown up the map so far?
I mean, a little bit, but like we talked about with Grace, he's gonna have to put on weight. That's exactly what in the last 7 months Harrison's put on some weight. You know what I mean? He's gotten, and the great thing about not just putting weight on to get stronger, is the explosion that it really takes the next level when you get to college. I mean, a lot of these guys never had real training, on how to run like fast. They're just taught. These dudes are natural speed.
They're just that fast, yeah.
Yeah, instead of learning new techniques and how to run faster and get bigger and stronger, that's exactly what Mari's there for. They haven't really gotten too much into the football aspect, you know what I mean? So he is impressing in the weight room and kind of those type of drills. But like you mentioned, Hall of Famer, he knows what he's doing. He's a professional from day one, and that's really kind of a big deal. Especially you're getting a lot of these guys, kind of like Fleming, and I hate harping on it because he's going to be a really good player here, but he's just so raw. A lot of these guys are so raw and didn't have that training growing up that Harrison had. You know, working out with his dad. He probably went to the facility when he was younger.
Oh yeah, hung around other all-pro receivers like Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, so I mean, he's had that, and he knows this is a business, and that he's got to make the most of it. And he came ready day one, and that's exactly what I mean. We weren't expecting him to stand out necessarily like this, but we were expecting him to be a pro's pro already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a key thing. Is I don't think he was so under the radar for so long because he was in a recruiting class for so long that nobody even really thought about him after a while. That's what happens, I think. Sometimes it's like Urban Meyer said the most perfect example ever was Jalen Marshall. He was in our class for so long, people forgot how good he really was. And I think we do that. We fatigue after. Okay, what's the next boom? Because I mean, I saw people DMing me today after Grayes commit. It's a great commit. Grayes is a boom. And who's the next guy? It's like, it just happened. Okay, we just had one. Let's simmer down a little bit. This class is going to take a while to unfold, and I understand the class has gotten off to a wild start, but we saw Alabama once they get cooking. My goodness, they can overtake you. That and a little bit of a friendly bump from the from the sites, but
And that definitely helps your rating.
that doesn't mean that Bama's not legitimately recruiting at an elite level, though. Obviously, so
But it's kind of like Jackson Smith last year.
yeah,
He was a low 3-star when we offered him. He was probably like 86, 87 rated.
Mhm.
And that's
People were wondering why we offered him and took him. People were wondering.
Yeah, and that's the same with the other grades. I think he was 87 when we really. I mean, we've been on him for a while. As far
Did he
as
just receive a huge bump, Grayes?
yeah, he did. I mean, he received a big bump, but like we've been on him for more than just since we offered him. We were on him a few months beforehand. We just kind of felt the need that we finally wanted to push for him hard because we liked him, but we just kind of wanted things play out, and we don't offer that many wide receivers. We just don't. We don't need to because we get the guys that we want. So you got to be very selective, especially early on. You don't want to fill up your class, especially and take a jump like a flyer when you don't know how they're going to pan out. But we saw enough of Grayes his junior year to really feel like good on it.
It's hard not to trust Hartline and Coach Key at this point, and Pantoni, that team there, and I'm sure Ryan Day has input as well. It's hard. I mean, Ryan Day is one of the. I mean, Zach Smith, as Zach Smith does it, he's the one that pushed for Olave. Ryan Day did. So, you got a great team there who can understand the nuances of being a great receiver, who are picking these guys. So it's really hard. I'll tell you, when we pick like an offensive lineman, I wonder a little bit sometimes. A wide receiver, I'm like, nah, I'm good. We got a great group of guys here that know what they want in a wide receiver. Quarterback, I don't really question Day and Dennis at this point because I mean, look at this talent. I mean, you figure we're going to actually have a video of this coming up for the quarterback battle. We were going to do that now, but with the commitment today, we want to talk about that first. So we'll have you back, Dylan, to talk about the QB battle ensuing here with between Miller, Stroud, and McCord. See what's going on with that. But anyway, thanks, Dylan, for coming on and talking some Kyion Grayes with us, guys. 4-star commit to the 11th commitment of the 2022 class. As you can see on the screen there, at Dylan Freeman VP. Check him out on Twitter. Knows his stuff. He's not clueless, so he knows his stuff. A little inside joke there, folks. But anyway, Dylan, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Of course, thanks for having me.